Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here on 9 News. Watch for a detailed look at your Colorado weather forecast for today and tomorrow, and little spoiler alert, looks to be a lot sunnier than what we've been seeing over the last 3 days. We are getting rid of that Seattle weather finally, and then as we get later on through the week, those temperatures could be back into the low 70s. I know, hallelujah, that is great news. But also what we're doing here, at least for the month of November, is we're answering your climate related questions, so we're going to tackle one of those coming up here in the next few minutes as well. But in the meantime, this is the story. Well, the sunshine in Denver is a story, and in the mountains, still enough moisture trapped up there that we're still talking about certainly some cloud cover and just a little bit in the way of snow. But it's looking like the holidays up there into the Eisenhower Tunnel right now with a fair bit of fresh snow. Some of the ski resorts got 8-9 inches of snow overnight, so the ski resorts did pretty well from this most recent system, and the mountain snowpack levels continue to be on the healthy side. So while Denver, we have not seen any snow yet, no measurable snowfall. We saw a few flakes, a few of those, again, conversational snowflakes earlier on this week. We haven't seen any measurable snowfall. What we mean by that is 1/10 of an inch or above at Denver International Airport. So Denver still technically and officially snow-free so far this year. Denver's average for a snowfall date is October the 18th. So this is pretty late in the season for us not to be talking about any measurable snow so far this season. And we've got none in the foreseeable future, at least for us here into the Denver area. Now, satellite picture kind of tells a story. You still see some of that cloud cover from the Continental Divide on west. Again, you always have to kind of wait a day or so after a system pulls on through to really kind of mix out those clouds and that kind of remnant moisture. Again, think about taking a wet sponge, and it kind of takes a little extra longer to kind of squeeze everything out. It's kind of the same dynamic that plays with what we're talking about in the mountains, where you just, because of those valleys and the just the topography, you're talking about ridges and valleys, and as a result, you kind of get that moisture stuck and trapped in there. So it takes a little while longer to get rid of it entirely. So we're still talking about some cloud cover and some leftover snowflakes for us in the mountains. Those should gradually dissipate as we head through the day. And by tomorrow morning, even the mountains, everybody basking in plenty of early November sunshine as we get into your first Thursday of the month of November. And by the way, enjoy those 5:50 p.m. sunsets while we got them, because those clocks go back this weekend when you will get the extra hour of sleep. But by the time we get into this Sunday and Monday, those sunsets will be before 5 o'clock. So bask in that sunshine and enjoy those relatively quote-unquote late sunsets, because it's going to get pretty dark and early coming up this weekend. Now, in the meantime, that snow forecast, we've got really nothing of which to speak about over the next few days, and that goes to show what's going to be coming into play here over the next 48 to 72 hours. We're going to see a big ridge of high pressure build on in, and that will keep us on the dry side and the warm side for the foreseeable future. Now, because of that system's still departing, it's going to be a bit cooler for your day today. It's only 50 degrees right now into Denver. I know I had to scrape off some frost in my house this morning. I'm sure a lot of you did as well here in the Denver area with some of that rain that we had yesterday. Some of that low-level moisture still stuck around. Had some of that fog in the northeastern corner of the state. Had some dense fog advisories earlier on this morning. Those have been allowed to expire. And the mountains, where we're seeing some of that cloud cover, and of course we're a little higher on elevation, it was a bit cooler, a lot of 30s and 40s out that way. Current temperatures, a lot of 40s and 50s for us in the immediate metro area. In the mountains, 30s and some low 40s popping on up in places like Blackhawk and Kremling. Forecast highs for your day today. It's going to be a little bit colder for us in the mountains. Eastern Plains, 50s and 60s. For tomorrow, looking at 30s and 40s into the mountains, and 60s for us along the Front Range and the urban corridor. So for your day tomorrow, we get those temperatures on up to, say, 62 in Greeley, 66 Denver, 67 Aurora, and 67 in Broomfield, 68 Littleton, and 62 Evergreen. So those temperatures, generally speaking, as we get into your day tomorrow, are going to be running close to about 10 degrees above average for this time of year. Again, today, 50s, tomorrow, 60s, and we'll see a little bit in the way of some cloud cover, some hit or miss clouds, but for the most part, we're talking about a mostly sunny day, and especially for us in the mornings, you should be talking about really not a cloud in the sky. Later on in the day, you get 1 or 2 clouds that develop. No big deal, and nothing coming from those clouds either. And as we get into your day tomorrow, beautiful mid to late fall day for us, with those temperatures getting up once again into the upper 60s for most of us around the metro area. And wouldn't be surprised a few spots get on up and touch 70 degrees. So again, for the most part, we're going to be running well above average for your day tomorrow. And if you think that's warm, look at Saturday and Sunday, when we could be talking about low to maybe even mid-70s. And the computer forecast models try and get us on up into the mid-70s for that Sunday, Monday time period. And once again, I want to emphasize that our average high this time of year is in the upper 50s. So when we're talking about low to mid-70s, that's your average high last week of September, first week of October, not the first and getting to the second week of the month of November. And we're going to be running about 10 to 15 degrees above average for really the foreseeable future. We do get a system that drops its way on through Sunday and Monday, but the majority of the energy from that probably stays north of us. So as a result of that, we're probably at least along the I-25 corridor going to stay dry until the middle of next week. That's when it looks like we start to see some more active weather push its way back into our picture. But until then, enjoy the sunshine, enjoy those warm temperatures. Again, 10 to 15 degrees above average, and still no snow, and we're probably not going to get it anytime soon. Our latest first measurable snowfall in Denver, November the 21st of 1934. So I don't know, it's still a little bit early to say, to be talking about that record being broken, but we've got less than 3 weeks until that date. So we are starting to get pretty late in the season with no snow in the foreseeable future, about no measurable snow yet for us here into the Denver area. All right, with that in mind, I want to take your climate questions as well. In fact, I'm going to go back to this here for a quick second and want to make sure that we're getting your questions answered. So again, this is a new part of our daily segment here on our 11 a.m. weather, that we want to answer a climate-related question. And we've got this one that comes in from Brandon L. in Littleton, who asks, would the climate change without man's emissions? And that's a really good question. It's something we kind of touched on last week as well. The quick answer to answer your question, Brandon, is yes. Climate change would certainly continue to happen even without any involvement from man. If we had no fossil fuel emissions, we had no greenhouse gases, yes, the climate would continue to change. Now, this chart hopefully shows you the influence of man and what the science tells us here. And notice that spike, that dramatic spike. So you can still tell that there are ebbs and flows, there are ice ages, there are warm periods, there are colder periods. That happens. There is climate change regardless of man. But when you notice such a pronounced spike, like what we're talking about on this chart, where we're talking about a degree and a half difference in just about 100 years' time, and that number continues to exponentially grow, so it's getting faster and faster, that is where you can pretty clearly tell from this chart that the influence of man is pronounced. It is stark, and it leads to some of those increasing impacts. And that's why you've seen a lot of global leaders this week in Glasgow, Scotland, trying to address some of the perils of climate change. Again, something we're trying to emphasize here at 9 News, as well as we head through the month of November, about some of those impacts from climate change, and also a bit more optimistically what we can do about it, which is, of course, reducing some of those fossil fuel emissions, generally speaking. And again, there's a little role that every one of us can play on a day-to-day basis to hopefully help improve that. So hopefully, Brandon, that explains your question. The answer is yes, it is a fair question. The climate would undoubtedly be changing without our influence. But again, going back to this chart here, there is no doubt that our influence is pretty pronounced. You don't need me to sit here and tell you about this chart. The chart speaks for itself here, just about how stark and how big of an impact that we've had over the course of the last 150 to 200 years. Really, since, again, going back to the industrial age that started in the early to mid 1800s. Well, that'll do it for your climate-related questions. Remember, you can send us those questions as well if you've got them. And also, again, that detailed look at the Colorado weather forecast, which is warm as we head through the upcoming weekend. We deserve it after a cloudy and Seattle-like last few days. I'm Meteorologist Chris Bianchi in the 9 News Weather Center.